What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my main event breakdown and prediction for UFC Vegas 86. We got Joe Pyfer going against Jack Hermansson.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back for another main event breakdown here. We are back in the Apex for UFC Vegas 86. It is a 14-fight card. And yeah, I like this main event. I'm a big fan of both guys, really. I think Jack Hermansson is a guy that's always been really underrated. Joe Pyfer is kind of the up-and-comer here that's just been running through guys as of late. And yeah, it's a stiff test for Joe Pyfer. If Joe Pyfer is able to beat a guy like Jack Hermansson, a guy that's been 5 rounds a couple times in the UFC, a guy in Jack Hermansson who's fought like the who's who in the division, that'd be an incredible win for Joe Pyfer. So can't wait to break this fight down. Before we get into it, if you guys could please do me a favor, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, be on the lookout for more content throughout the week. I'll be posting my full card breakdown and prediction video for UFC Vegas 86. I think I'm done with 11 out of the 14 fights, so there's 3 more fights I need to look into, but that should all be done and out for you guys on Monday. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I say we get into this matchup. It's a fascinating matchup. It's a matchup that I think I'm very excited for. I think a lot of people should be excited for. I think Joe Pyfer is a guy that people should be excited about. This guy's fun. This guy brings violence, and so does Jack Hermansson. So this is a really good matchup here. We'll start with Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer is 27 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 12-2 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Jack Hermansson, 35 years old, 6'1", with a 77.5-inch reach, 23-8 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds and where these odds opened. So January 5th, it looked like Joseph Pyfer opened up minus 250, is currently minus 225, and then Jack Hermansson opened up plus 210, currently plus 190. It's not a ton of line movement since these lines came out a little bit over, or like a month ago exactly at this point. So Joe Pyfer, he's been looking great. I mean, this is a guy that's been going out there and getting it done, and getting it done in very dominant fashion. And Joseph Pyfer has been an absolute moneymaker for me. It all started with his debut against Alen Amedovski, which, I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that, but he did what he was supposed to do, which is knock out Alen Amedovski in the first round. I cashed the under 1.5 there, and then against Gerald Meerschaert. And this is kind of what made me a fan of Joe Pyfer. So Joe Pyfer and Sean Brady do like a weekly prediction show, right? And they were talking about Joe Pyfer's fight with Gerald Meerschaert, and Joe Pyfer was like something along the lines of, "I bet my life on the knockout." And I'm like, whoa. I've heard guys say they're going to get a knockout or a sub, but I've never heard a fighter say, "I'm going to bet my life on it." So he bet his life that he's going to knock out Gerald Meerschaert, which I thought was awesome. And for that reason and other reasons, I ended up playing the knockout prop pretty heavily for Joe Pyfer, first round knockout there, and he came through there. And then against Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, he went out there and got a submission win, and I cashed the sub. I cashed the submission round 2 for Joe Pyfer, so that was a massive hit as well. So I've been making a ton of money on Joe Pyfer fights, but I mean, let's be real. This is going to be Joe Pyfer's toughest test ever, and by a mile, and it's not even close. Contender Series win against Ozzy Diaz. Alen Amedovski doesn't belong in the UFC. I think he's cut, and if not, he should be. And then Gerald Meerschaert. I like Meerschaert. We all like Meerschaert, but come on, right? Good win, but Gerald Meerschaert can be knocked out, and the chin has been questionable. And then Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, a guy that has like 5 minutes of cardio. So this is going to be a very good test for Joe Pyfer. Jack Hermansson's a guy that's fought really good competition. Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis, Roma Dolidze, Marvin Vettori, Calvin Gastelum, Jared Cannonier, just some of the top guys in the division. Thiago Santos back in the day. He's fought everybody. He's fought a ton of guys, and he's had multiple 5-round fights, and he's went the full 25 minutes. Went the full 25 minutes against Marvin Vettori. Went the full 25 minutes against Sean Strickland. So Jacare Souza as well. So just a very experienced guy in Jack Hermansson, and a guy that's really good. Jack Hermansson, his striking just looks much improved nowadays. Against Roma Dolidze, he was winning the striking exchanges. And then there was the whole calf slicer into a TKO for Roman thing. But up until then, Jack was looking good on the feet. Against Chris Curtis, he made Chris Curtis look silly out there for 3 rounds. Outlanded him 100 to 43. Was semi-competitive against Sean Strickland. That fight was a split decision. It shouldn't have been. Sean Strickland won that fight running away, but it was a lot closer than you would expect on the feet against a guy like Sean Strickland, right? So I think Jack Hermansson's striking is very underrated, but what I always have liked most about Jack Hermansson is the grappling. This guy's a great grappler, very dangerous on top, some of the best ground and pound you ever see, and if Jack Hermansson gets on top, there's going to be some problems. The thing with Jack Hermansson, though, is he's not a great wrestler. Only a 29% takedown accuracy for Jack Hermansson, and he's getting up there in age as well. He's 35 years old. He's on a little bit of a layoff. We haven't seen him since like late 2022 against Elidze, where we did get TKO'd in a weird fashion, weird way there. So it's been about a year and a month since we've last seen Jack Hermansson. And he turns 36 in a couple months, I believe, as well. So he's not getting any younger. And then on the flip side, we got Joe Pyfer, who I think is really good. He's one of those Renzo Gracie Philly guys, and a guy in Joe Pyfer who's honestly well-rounded. This is a guy, pretty sure he's a BJJ black belt. He can wrestle offensively. His grappling's very dangerous, really good ground and pound, but on the feet, this guy Joe Pyfer has just a ton of power, and I think that power is going to potentially give Jack Hermansson some problems here. Of course, there are some question marks about Joe Pyfer. What does he look like if this fight was to reach the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round? We really don't know. Typically Joe Pyfer fights, especially in the UFC, they are finishing within the first 2 rounds. A lot of his fights outside the UFC are finishing inside the first 2 rounds. So if this fight does get extended and if Jack Hermansson's able to get on top and this fight's late in the fight, that could be trouble. But I just personally don't think this fight's going to last too long, and I think that's because Joe Pyfer hits like a truck, and I just see him knocking out Jack Hermansson. I don't think Jack Hermansson's going to be able to take Joe Pyfer down, and if not, although I think the striking exchanges are going to be competitive, I think Jack, like I said, is a great grappler or a great striker. I like his volume. It's just Joe Pyfer's power is different, and we have seen Jack Hermansson knocked out before. We have seen him hurt before as well. And I think Joe Pyfer is getting Jack Hermansson at the right time. 35, almost 36 years old, coming off a little bit of layoff. Joe Pyfer, a lot of hype on the guy, and rightfully so. This guy's very, very fun to watch. So I'm kind of leaning knockout. I picked the submission for Joe Pyfer last time against Abdulrazak Al-Hassan. I don't think he's submitting Jack Hermansson. We have seen Jack Hermansson subbed, but it was a while ago. I think like back in 2016. But, I don't think Pyfer's subbing Jack Hermansson. I'm kind of leaning knockout here for Joe Pyfer. So, and I think it's early as well. I think it's within the first 2 rounds as well for Joe Pyfer. If it does get to the 3rd round, I think it will get interesting because Jack Hermansson has shown that he can go the full 25 minutes. I'm going Pyfer. I'm going Pyfer by knockout, 2nd round. I think early to mid 2nd round there. And then, we touched on the odds a little bit. It's minus 225 for Pyfer. It's a lot. It's a big price to pay considering, I mentioned a lot of reasons to like Jack Hermansson. This guy's more experienced. He's been the full 25 minutes. His striking's good. His striking's very underrated. His grappling's very good. His ground and pound's really good. The cardio. So there are a lot of reasons to like Jack Hermansson, but, I just see Pyfer knocking him out. I see him touching his chin. Pyfer hits so hard. But I don't know if I lay minus 225 on Joe Pyfer. The over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. So the under 2.5 opened up at plus 100. I think that was very generous considering it is a Joe Pyfer fight. And Joe Pyfer has not seen a 3rd round in the UFC yet. And maybe that does change here since it is a pretty stiff step up in competition. But, under 2.5 at plus money was the move there. Minus 130, I still don't think that's terrible. Like I said, it's a Joe Pyfer fight. But on the flip side, Jack Hermansson, in his 5-round fights, he has went over the 2.5 rounds a couple times. He went over 2.5 against Sean Strickland, but that Sean Strickland went over 2.5 against Marvin Vettori, but that's Marvin Vettori. And then he went over 2.5 against Jacare Souza. And then the only fight he did go under in a 5-round fight was against, who was it? Jared Cannonier back in 2019, where Jared Cannonier did knock him out in the 2nd round. So if you like the under, you probably like Pyfer. If this goes over, you probably like Hermansson. Maybe the Hermansson late props could be something to look at, but I don't think it gets that far, to be honest. So The spot that I'm going to be looking at this week is I want to see what Pyfer knockout is. I doubt it's anything good. I bet they'll be all over it. He's minus 225. I bet it's probably going to be like minus 110, minus 125 for the knockout prop. So I don't think you're going to get a great price on it, but I do think that's the most likely outcome here. So we'll see what sticks out throughout the week. But yeah, the under 2.5 currently, minus 130. I don't think it's the worst look in the world considering it is a Joe Pyfer fight. So give me a Joe Pyfer. Give me Joe Pyfer, second round knockout. Let me know down in the comments what you guys have. Is anybody taking the dog shot on Hermansson? If you are, I don't blame you. You know, there's some reasons to like him. I just think it's Joe Pyfer's time. I think he's going to show out in his first main event, and I can't wait to see where he goes from here. So give me Joe Pyfer, and I think he gets the job done. Best of luck, everybody, for UFC Vegas 86. Be on the lookout for more content throughout the week, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. See you later.